Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Big Ten Talk with Emily. I am joined today by Edward Egros, and you can find him at his Substack, Pine Sports, as well as FanDuel Sports Network West. Excuse me. How are you doing today? This morning, actually, I guess.
I'm doing well. When you are at the home of the bucked up LA Bowl, every day is a good day. And
I
so
imagine.
I'm excited to talk to you about even more bowl games, Emily.
I know. Thank you so much. And pardon me because I'm getting over a cold, so I probably don't sound the greatest, especially compared to you. You have like a great podcast voice, by the way. But I am
It's the
super
microphone.
excited.
I promise it's the microphone.
I'm super excited to talk about these three. Before we get into it, did you actually go to the bucked up LA Bowl?
I did not.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it. I would have though, because but Washington is a Big Ten team, and they're near and dear. I've been out there a couple times, and some great friends out there. So unfortunately, I missed it, and unfortunately, I won't get another opportunity to go to it. But
I know it's done now.
yeah, but you know what though, and not to go off on some digression on it, but there
Do
is
it.
something that I really do like when it comes to not so much teams having to scramble to go to a bowl game and having to do travel arrangements and all that stuff, but I do like the idea of a matchup happening on short notice in college football. I feel like, we
Yeah.
find out rivalries and series and stuff like 7-10 years down the road. Why not just have something the next week or 2 weeks from now? I feel like that's kind of a lost art for them, and I wish we would see more of that.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. Whose brings up a good point. Not near and dear to Emily, though, because I hate you, Deb. But I do understand it being a Big Ten team, and you're very professional, Ed. I appreciate it. It's so funny. So last Friday, I had BJ Rains on, who covers Boise State, to talk and preview the game. And I was joking around with him that he was so professional and informative that he kept me from saying anything petty or mean about my rival, because he basically led the show, which was incredibly appreciated. So getting the same professional vibes from you, Ed, and I appreciate that tremendously. But yes, it was the last LA Bowl, and I think that game unfortunately went the way a lot of us thought it was going to go, with UW pulling away with a win. Not even pulling away, they basically dominated that game and getting that win. So they can now crown themselves as the forever champion of the bucked up LA Bowl, which I know they will do. So,
Why
but
wouldn't
you
they?
exactly. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah,
So
exactly. Like have a statue of Gronk somewhere on campus,
why
even though
not?
he didn't go there. Like make it all make sense.
Exactly. Absolutely. Why wouldn't they? So I actually grew up in Southern California, San Diego, though. So I grew up amongst the bowl games like the Rose Bowl and the Holiday Bowl. I went to the Holiday Bowl when Oregon was in it playing against Oklahoma State. And so it's like a good place to live when it comes to postseason college football. And so never made it to the LA Bowl. That wasn't a thing even when I was still in Southern California. But seeing people talk about Southern California and seeing their pictures of them at, the LA Bowl, and talking about all these upcoming different sporting things are going to, it always kind of brings me back. So I'm like, oh yeah. And so now you're here, you live in Southern California, you can relate to it as well. Your beautiful weather, beautiful scenery. And even though you didn't make it to the LA Bowl, you're still festive about the LA Bowl.
Exactly, I am. And I think it's also important for college football, if for no other reason, that UCLA probably moving its home games to SoFi Stadium. So it's another chance to showcase what SoFi can do in the college football world, because you think about it, it is a kind of a controversial move in a lot of ways. Yet at the same time, to me, it makes some sense, if for no other reason that, look, college football is run by the wealthy, the elite. I think it's safe to say that's the case. And when UCLA has an opportunity to make more money by having nicer facilities for those who are attending games, then you probably want to go ahead and do that. And not to say that the Rose Bowl isn't special. The history there is second to none. All of that good stuff is very true. But when it comes to making the boosters, making those who are going to be, giving a lot of donations very happy and comfortable, then that probably is a move that you're going to make. And besides, I do feel like that the UCLA contingent, they're probably not going to enough UCLA football games.
Right.
And so maybe moving it to SoFi in a more centrally located spot like Inglewood, compared with Pasadena, which is a little bit more on the edge of the LA Metroplex, so to speak. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so I do think that the LA Bowl does serve a purpose just when it comes to seeing if they can provide that sort of college football environment. Now, I wasn't there, but was it able to do that? Well, I think the logistics of announcing a bowl game, on short notice, that probably had a bigger effect when it came to the lack of attendance. Yet at the same time, I do think that SoFi certainly has the capabilities of providing a pretty good college football environment. And if I read this correctly too, I think when the Olympics are going to be here in a few years, it's also possible USC may also have to play games at SoFi Stadium because the Coliseum is going to be rented out for all sorts of stuff. And so that's also, a real concern there. If I'm not mistaken, I have to double check that. But still, I mean, this is a chance to see what SoFi is made of, if it can be that kind of universal stadium that can house a lot of different sports in addition to the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. And I imagine you have been, but have you been to SoFi Stadium?
Oh, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely
Mhm.
beautiful. I can absolutely understand moving UCLA games there. And kind of like what you said, just like it serves as a better location compared to Pasadena. And that's like continuously come up in discussion about trying to get people, especially students, to these games at the Rose Bowl to kind of build up that culture and just have more fans show up has been a
Mhm.
continuous challenge for them as a program.
Yeah, it really has. And especially now that you're part of the Big Ten, and I think you would agree with this, you kind of have to step your game up a little bit. And yeah, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, ever for UCLA to have an on-campus stadium. I think,
Yeah.
from my friends who've reported on this stuff, that kind of ship has sailed. And maybe there is a little bit more forgiveness because UCLA, large campus, Westwood, it is jam-packed and congested, so there's not really the room to do that. But Inglewood is closer, and it's also
Yeah.
closer to a lot of different neighborhoods that would care about college football. And so I think it is an opportunity to showcase that, yes, UCLA does belong in the Big Ten, and here is an opportunity to step your game up. Again, nothing against the Rose Bowl. It's a phenomenal facility, but I can think of like the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, for instance, where, yeah, the Cotton Bowl is amazing, but it kind of loses the luster when you're hosting games all the time. So the fact that it has Texas, Oklahoma, and maybe one or two other things, I think it keeps it special. And I think the Rose Bowl can also stay special, if not be even better, by hosting, say, less.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. So RIP to the LA Bowl, basically. Short story. Short story short. Exactly. All right. So we are here to preview the Rate Bowl, the Music City Bowl, and the Alamo Bowl. Do you have a preference on which one we start with?
Let's do the Rate Bowl. Why not?
Yeah, why not? That's first on my list. So that works as well.
Perfect.
All right. So in the Rate Bowl, we have Minnesota versus New Mexico. So what are your general thoughts on this matchup, Ed?
Well, first off, New Mexico being on a 6-game winning streak, including wins over San Diego State and UNLV, that is impressive. And yeah, some of those games were mighty close. But when you go on a winning streak like that in the Mountain West, then you're going to get my attention. And certainly the Lobos have done that. It is interesting when you look at New Mexico's offense because they could never really establish the run effectively and efficiently, even though that is a large part of New Mexico's identity. And at the same time, their EPA per dropback ranked around 40th nationally. So it's something where, okay, maybe the identity wasn't entirely set, but the passing game was still more than impressive enough to have that 6-game winning streak and be able to put together some explosive plays and long drives and efficient and drives, all that good stuff. And so I look at this and I see Jack Lane, more than 2,300 yards. No running back had more than 600 yards. Again, that kind of taps back into this lack of efficiency thing. something, but they're willing to have multiple guys kind of carry the rock. And so I think when you're looking at that side of the ball, Emily, it begins with New Mexico being able to sort of, establish its offensive identity, maybe in different ways than they would like to do, but it still is effective. And I think this is one of those situations where Minnesota is going to really have to go back to the drawing board when it comes to figuring out how to slow down an unusual rushing attack and a passing attack that has proven itself to be able to sustain long drives.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the notes I made on this game was pointing to the New Mexico offense. I know one of the bigger concerns that people have around New Mexico are the amount of turnovers that they've had this season. So I feel like if that's something that continues in this game and in this matchup with Minnesota, that's something that Minnesota could potentially capitalize on and kind of make it an interesting game. But I also know a lot of people have picked this game as like New Mexico upsetting the Big Ten team and coming out with a win over Minnesota.
It is interesting that I know you weren't expecting to talk so much LA Bowl, but I may have to reference it just one more time because look, I mean, it was Boise State against Washington, Mountain West versus Big Ten, and so we're getting that kind of same conference matchup here. But I think it is a little bit different in that while I know our sort of fallback or kind of obvious route to take is, well, it's a Big Ten team, they're more battle tested, they face that top tier, that they're going to be able to handle whatever New Mexico can throw, or rather any Mountain West team can throw. But I think this one's just a little bit different. And I'm with you that I think Minnesota could very well be on upset alert, if for no other reason. Minnesota's offense has been brutal. They have not been able to put any kind of semblance together. And it looks like that, okay, if you're going to go up against New Mexico, maybe you want to do the ground and pound, rely on the run just a little bit more. But it's not like New Mexico's defense is awful in that regard. Like, yeah, it could be a little bit better, but I mean, I wouldn't necessarily, say that Minnesota has this obvious advantage as far as establishing the run is concerned.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think also when you're looking at Minnesota, the one reason why they might be able to cover this 2.5-point spread, if nothing else, is just because PJ Fleck is the head coach. He gets his teams prepared for bowl games. 6-0 record in bowl games at Minnesota. I think 7-2 career overall. And that's probably the one concern I have if I'm backing New Mexico. But still, though, I think when you're looking at sort of the strengths and weaknesses, what Minnesota wants to try and do in a game like this, I think New Mexico could very well have answers for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't necessarily expect this game to swing one way dominantly. I kind of think it's going to be a competitive game that's kept close. And I could definitely see New Mexico pulling it off, especially with their offense. The one thing that Minnesota, I feel like they have a good enough defense to kind of keep up with New Mexico's offense. And so that'll be like an interesting matchup between the two. But otherwise, I'm intrigued. This isn't my favorite bowl game matchup, but it's still college football, so I'll take it. And I think it's going to be fun. I'm going to, not that I'm super into conference loyalty or conference allegiance, but I'm going to stick with Minnesota just ever so slightly here.
I think I'm going to take the other side. I think I'm going to go with New Mexico here.
Yeah.
If for no other reason, it makes for great podcasting.
Exactly. No, I love that.
Yeah. That's point number one there. But I think also too, like this could be one of those games. Like the total I believe is 47.5. This is probably going to be a lower scoring game. If I had to pick a side, I'd take the under there. If for no other reason, I don't trust Minnesota's offense to be able to do anything. Even if it is against a Mountain West team. So that's one thing. Also, this may be something, you mentioned the turnovers. I think that's important because if say Minnesota does get out to an early lead, that may be it. It may be curtains after that point. This might very well be a game where if you don't like it, maybe you don't have to watch more than, say, a few drives to know what the outcome is going to be. Then you can move on with your life.
Yep. So true. Yeah. The turnovers are like the big question mark around New Mexico. So again, like if Minnesota can capitalize on those and the defense does more of the work and the offense doesn't really have to worry about catching up or saving them, it could very well be Minnesota's game. So yeah, absolutely looking forward to it. That's one of the ones that are coming up sooner than later. Actually, we have the Rate Bowl on December 26th. So a little over a week to go. Okay. Which game are we talking about next?
Music City Bowl. Let's do it.
Perfect. You're going in the exact order that I wrote these. So this
Exactly
is
the
perfect.
same order you told me. I figured let's go ahead and stick with that because
I love it.
You're the boss. You're the professor here.
I love it. So this is actually one of the more interesting matchups. I think I speak for many when I say SEC and Big Ten team matchups are always entertaining and ones that kind of draw the audience in, especially since these two conferences are consistently kind of head to head in terms of arguing with each other, people debating with one another about who has the stronger conference, which conference is better, and whatnot. So the Music City Bowl, we have Illinois versus Tennessee. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, first off, the line has gone down since just last night when I was putting together sort of my last minute notes. It was Tennessee 5.5. Now it's Tennessee 3.5. And to me, that movement is quite significant, especially given that, this game isn't going to be for a little bit. We're starting to get, some chatter a little bit in terms of who's going to be available for the Volunteers. And this is something where I think this offense is going to look quite differently. Granted, yes, Joey Aguilar, a fantastic quarterback, but there are going to be some changes there. He's not going to have Chris Brazel, the wide receiver. He's opting out. And also Tennessee's not going to have its offensive coordinator. They're not going to have their offensive coordinator. And then you've also have some defenders who are not going to be playing. And so this to me is a situation where this offense could look, rather different. And what they will be made of will be a massive question in a game where Illinois, I think, wants to prove that, yes, it wasn't the season we would have liked to have had, especially given all of the seniors and juniors that we have on the roster. Yet at the same time, I think knocking off an SEC foe, especially a pretty good one, in my opinion, they're not on the top tier, but knocking off a second tier SEC team, I think there's probably a pride element to that, especially when you've got guys who've been within the program for such a long period of time. Tennessee's offense looking drastically different. That's going to be a big question mark. And then, Illinois, they're going to care, but it may be an opportunity to snag one.
Absolutely. And with the win, this would be the first time they have consecutive 9-win seasons. And so under their head coach. So I think they will care, kind of like what you were alluding to. I think they will care and they might be a little bit more motivated, but Tennessee is going to look different. Now, that being said, I know Gabe Jacobs is also opting out for Illinois. So that's kind of like he led in the Big Ten. So I know that that's also a loss on Illinois' side. But Luke Altmaier, people have a lot of faith, which I don't blame him. People have a lot of faith in Luke Altmaier. And I think that with the motivation of wanting to reach 9 wins and kind of ending their season with a positive is definitely enough to keep Illinois in this game.
Yeah, it is interesting that at the start of the season, I was on another radio show and I bombastically told them that because Illinois had an easier schedule, they had veteran leadership at just about every position group. I felt like that they could finish as the 4th best team in the Big Ten, behind Ohio State, behind Penn State, behind Oregon. And I felt like that could be enough to make the playoff. And I was dead wrong. And I was dead wrong with my prognostication because Illinois' defense was terrible. The pass rush was awful. The coverage was awful. Off-ball linebacker play wasn't very good. They just could not limit explosives to save their lives. In fact, I went up to cfb-graphs.com. Fantastic resource if you're looking at sort of team rankings, sort of a bird's eye view as far as how every position unit, or rather every offense, defense has performed throughout the season. Illinois' defense, their drop back success rate, 123rd nationally. 123rd. And I think we remember against the good teams how Illinois performed against Ohio State, against Indiana. Even though they beat USC, that defense had a lot of question marks, absolutely boat raced, even in a win. But still, though, facing the top tier, Illinois' defense did not show up at all. And now you're going up against a Tennessee offense that I think we know what that program under Josh Heupel is capable of. We know that Tennessee can put up a bunch of points. Yeah, it might look a little bit different. There might be a little bit of scrambling just in terms of, what the identity is going to be. But still, though, the potential is quite high there.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have such a high-powered offense as well, even with
Mhm.
it looking a little differently. I mean, I know that was kind of like the equation people have been giving. It's like the high-powered offense meets the more physical approach in Illinois. But I don't know if Illinois is going to have enough physicality to be able to stop Tennessee
Mhm.
completely from winning. But it's funny you mentioned the USC game because I think that was like one of the full Illinois games that I caught this season.
Mhm.
And I remember just thinking like defense on both sides is like really struggling in this game. And eventually it gave Illinois the edge because USC's defense also really struggled in that game.
Yeah, it did, and it's also one of those things where it was clock management. It was made field
Yes.
goals at the end. It's one of those wonky kind of games where it really could have gone either way. And had USC, pulled off that win, then we would probably be talking about them very differently. Maybe as like one
Totally.
of those cusp playoff teams.
Absolutely.
But you got to win the close ones, and that's life in college football. So it is something where it wouldn't have taken a whole lot for Illinois to look even more downtrodden, especially with a contest like that one. And yeah, they pulled off the win, and that's great. But when you've got all of that experience, maybe I sort of expected them or expected a little bit more out of them to win a game like that. So,
Totally.
I kind of came away from that one maybe a little less impressed by the Illini than perhaps I would have liked, especially given I was backing them as a long shot to make the playoff.
Right. Very true. Yes, this is true. So how do you feel about this game? Do you think not necessarily a score prediction, but who do you think wins?
I think Tennessee is going to pull it
Yeah.
off. I do think that, cornerback Boo Carter, he's in the transfer portal, and that's going to be a thing. We're not going to see a cornerback Jermod McCoy. He has been out all year, but he wasn't going to return for this. He's already
Right.
declaring for the NFL draft. And so, I think it's something where I know that Illinois will have several players going into the transfer portal. So, I mean, that's going to be an interesting team next year. Who's going to be playing for them? And like you mentioned, Altmaier being there, I think is a good thing. But I mean, I almost feel for the guy because
Yeah.
when the defense keeps imploding like they have for chunks of the season, then it's just hard for any good quarterback to kind of keep up. And so this is probably going to be another one of those situations. I mean, again, I suppose you have to bring in the motivation topic when talking about them, but still, though, Tennessee, they play with some pride. I think that does
They do.
matter, in a contest like this one. So I think the Vols are going to pull it off.
Same. Yep. I think the Vols will pull this one off as well.
Mhm.
Okay. And then your neck of the woods,
Yes.
USC is going to be in the Alamo Bowl with TCU. What are your thoughts on this game?
I have been keeping up with TCU's offense and what the heck it's supposed to look like going forward. And I think really the conversation should start there. I know it's very easy to look at USC and see all of the star power and go,
Yeah.
well,
Absolutely.
shoot, that's why I'm gonna tune in for this one is to see another high octane Lincoln Riley kind of offense. But actually, I think TCU's offense is really going to be the storyline here in large part because quarterback Josh Hoover, it's looking likelier and likelier that he is going to remain with the program, in large part because TCU's offensive coordinator, Kendall Briles, he is heading out to South Carolina. And as you no doubt know, Emily, NIL, certainly that can matter in terms of where a quarterback plays. But also what matters is if you've been with a certain offensive coordinator for a period of time, maybe you want to stay with them and maintain that consistency, regardless of whatever your surroundings might be, including going to a different program altogether. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Lenora Sellers for South Carolina looks like he's going to stay with the program. And so that's going to be big news for the Gamecocks next season. But in the here and now, I think that gives TCU some added stability, especially when it's quite likely that this could be a shootout. This could be a really, really exciting Alamo Bowl where Josh Hoover is going to have to keep up with a high octane Lincoln Riley offense.
Yeah.
And the fact that there should be more continuity there. Yeah, they won't have their, offensive coordinator, but it may be something where the installations are pretty sound. And it may be something where TCU may be able to keep up in a shootout.
And do you think USC's defense is equipped to handle that level of offense from TCU?
I think that's a good question. I mean, certainly, USC's got some playmakers. I think
Yeah,
that's super important here. I mean, like for instance, safety Bishop Fitzgerald, highest graded safety for PFF with 5 interceptions, but he is dealing with injury, and so we probably won't see him in that contest. Kamari Ramsey, another safety, he missed the final 2 games, and so this may be something where the coverage unit may be a big question. But when it comes to the pass rush, if they can get home or at least apply enough pressure and get through TCU's offensive line, I think this may be something that may be how they try and win this game. I just have too many questions because I think they're going to be key gaps in terms of the supplemental secondary activity. I think that's going to be the problem when it comes to USC trying to kind of stifle whatever the Frogs are trying to do.
yeah. And kind of taking a look at the flip side of that, you talked
Mhm.
about USC's high-powered offense and kind of like that's what draws people in, rightfully so. Their offense has been on fire all season long and been incredibly entertaining to watch. Do you think TCU will be able to have an answer for that, or is that kind of what wins the game for USC?
The only answer that TCU can have is if everybody opts out or sits out of this one, then maybe they have a chance. But, this is one of those situations where, yeah, Lincoln Riley is certainly, taken his fair share of criticism throughout the last couple of years, just because,
Right.
when you give someone that kind of money, then you expect results. And certainly USC has the resources to be able to contend for the Big Ten. Maybe not win it because Ohio State's on this incredible run and Indiana's
Right.
doing crazy things and Oregon's doing crazy things too. But I think USC should be able to stay in that conversation, and they really haven't up to this point. And so part of this is, what are the Stars going to do? I
Yeah.
remember when I went to the USC Northwestern game, seeing Mekhi Lemon in person, the wide receiver. Goodness gracious, he stood out.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that, how he could beat one-on-one coverage. My would see him, and then it was going to lead to a chunk play or a touchdown. His 90.4 PFF grade led all receivers this season. 1,156 receiving yards. This may be someone who could declare for the NFL draft and be a first rounder. So, he certainly has some big decisions to make. And then Jacoby Lane might not be a part of this offense for this game. He's the second leading receiver. And so we may get a bunch of unknowns when it comes to what the USC roster is supposed to look like. But still, though, it's something where the recruiting and the depth is still very much there. And maybe it takes on a different form, and TCU's defense is having to scramble to figure out, okay, who's the likeliest to get the ball? What are the progressions in terms of, what do they want to do? What are they trying to do? And certainly Lincoln Riley's play calling and play design, it is more than complicated enough, especially if there's no film on them, to be able to give just about any defense fits. And so this is something where if I'm betting on this game, I might want to wait a little bit just to make absolutely sure I know who is in and who is out for USC. But I probably would still feel comfortable taking the over here. I mean, TCU is such to where they can play in shootouts, and they might be comfortable, in that kind of tone and tenor. So I think that USC, regardless of who's playing, they can still put up some big numbers, and it will be exciting to watch, even if we're having to constantly go on social media and figure out who the heck number so and so is.
That's a really good point. But I think this is an incredibly entertaining and exciting matchup. I'm actually looking forward to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, personally, I have horrible memories of the Alamo Bowl featuring TCU,
Oh
but
yeah, I
yeah,
remember that. Yeah,
awful.
yeah. How could you do that?
It's awful. I'll see people post those clips. I'm like, it's been enough time. We can stop. Which is totally hypocritical because I post clips from like decades ago all the time.
Yeah, right.
But just awful. But I'm looking forward to this matchup, and kind of like what you said, it'll be interesting in the next coming weeks who we hear about opting out and not playing versus who will be in the game, especially for USC.
Mhm.
But as of right now, if like everyone was going to play, I feel like I would take USC in this one. But we'll see.
Oh, easily. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If USC is entirely there
Right.
and no one opted out or anything of the sort, absolutely the Trojans might win this one running away.
Yeah.
It's still a 5.5 point spread for USC, and
Right.
I'm not expecting that to move a lot. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get a little bit of a half a point, full point swing. I wouldn't expect to do too much more if it is. Then absolutely I would back the Trojans. I mean, I think you're almost sort of grasping at straws when it comes to TCU having Josh Urbett matters, but still I don't necessarily see TCU defensively, no matter what Lincoln Riley has to work with, being able to slow them down, and that's what you get out of them, and also too, and I'd love your thoughts on this as well. Going back to this notion of, okay, can USC pay or play for pride in a situation like this? Because when we're talking about Big Ten tiers, USC is not there. They are not with Ohio State and Michigan and Oregon and all of that. But they need to get there, and they need to get there soon. Otherwise, they might need to just blow it up. And even though bowl games, don't carry the same weight as, say, a rivalry game or a top 10 matchup or whatever it is, I do think, though, that continuity and this idea of establishing a winning culture, especially against, a team that's only a couple of years removed from playing for the national championship, a Big 12 team that, could very well contend for a conference title next year. This, to me, is something where I can see narratively why USC should care just a little bit more.
Yeah, I definitely think, for all the reasons you said, I think USC needs to care about this game. I think they need the win to kind of cap off the season, which is an improvement from last season, but especially for your quarterback, kind of giving, again, just a more confidence going into next season, continuing to build what they have going, I think is really important.
Mhm.
And Lincoln Riley has received a lot of criticism, some of it rightfully so, in just a couple of years. And so I think to not take this game seriously would speak to the character of the type of coach he is. And
Mhm.
you obviously want that to be in more positive light. The conversation around Lincoln Riley is really fascinating to me. And this has come up a couple of times on this show. It's kind of what is the bigger picture here?
Mhm.
How long is he going to be at USC? Obviously, that might be dependent on the continued growth, development, and success that he has there. But also, it's you hear him up for almost like most head coaching jobs, his name's always kind of thrown around. And then even more so recently, NFL jobs, and kind of would he make the move to the NFL? I'm not saying that would necessarily be smart for the type of coach he is,
Mhm.
but it's still one that coaches make to kind of try it out and experiment with.
For sure. And I wouldn't blame him
Yeah,
if he were to make that kind of move. I mean, he
right.
certainly established himself as being a quarterback whisperer in many situations, but we don't talk
Exactly.
about him as much as we did when he was at Oklahoma, where,
No,
you have back-to-back Heisman winners. And look, Jaden Mayava, if he returns for next season, he might be the Heisman favorite,
yeah,
if not someone who's going to be in the top 3. And so it
totally.
may be something where, okay, his stock is a little bit low right now. But if you are going to creep it back up, this is one of those things that, look, it's a bowl game, but people might
Exactly.
remember it. You certainly don't want to get boat raced against TCU, because that's going to be probably the worst result when it comes to sort of getting the reputation back for USC and for yourself. So if there is going to be some kind of a move, the infrastructure is such to where USC could be a real contender next year, but you don't want to have an offseason full of distractions. And I think it would
Yeah.
only worsen if you lose a game like this.
Exactly. If USC is looking to get back into a top tier college football like they once were, they need to care about games like this. Even if it's
Mhm.
the last game, even if it's a bowl game, they need to care about games like this and kind of leave their mark on a season that, again, was an improvement, but they're hoping to take another step forward and continue improving next season. And I think it's important for Mayava as well.
Yeah. Absolutely, it is. I mean, here's another data point for him potentially
Yep.
if he, plays in a game like this. If
Yeah.
for no other reason that you get added reps, you might be working with different guys. Let's see what you're capable of doing there. I think anytime a college quarterback can learn more with sort of on-field experience, maybe you're changing
Totally.
up personnel, maybe you're changing up plays, putting him in pressure-packed situations, see how he gets out of those. I don't see that being a bad thing for his development.
Exactly. Exactly. Totally agree. So I'm excited for this game. Like I said, I think USC pulls away with the win if their offense looks like we know it to look. Kind of just depends on opting out. But I am excited for this game and kind of just to just like a fun question. Like, is there like how are you feeling about playoffs? Like not even specific to Big Ten. Like, do you
Mhm.
have a prediction for who you want or hope ends up in the national championship? Or like what are you looking forward to about this particular playoff run for all of these teams?
Well, first off, as someone who's from Louisiana and someone who actually grew up a Tulane fan, I'm
Oh,
really, really excited to see that program, not only make it, but also go up against Ole Miss, where I don't think the Lane Kiffin news is that big of a deal. Like I still think
right.
Ole Miss is going to win and cover the 17 and a half or whatever it is. But still, though, I think seeing Tulane there to me is really, really cool and special just for my childhood, if nothing else.
Yeah.
And I was at the opening game between Tulane and Northwestern, and it was really, really exciting to see the culture there. And the fans, were absolutely kind and really smart and knowledgeable when it came to football. And so I think what excites me about the playoffs, just culturally, I suppose, is to see a school like Tulane be able to be on the big stage. And yeah, even if they're blown out, I still think they deserve to be there because I think group of six schools still deserve those opportunities.
Right.
Okay, maybe we're not going to get every single playoff game to be exciting, but not every game in March Madness is exciting.
True.
And it happens. Not every college baseball, college World Series game is exciting. It's just
Right.
the way it is. But you need to give everyone at least an opportunity to be there. And so I think that's exciting. And then also too, not just to make it a Big Ten slant to kiss up to the host here. But I also think that there's a very real chance that we could see another Indiana Ohio State game. And
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, that Big Ten championship game was pretty fun. And
Yeah.
this will be fun to see the chess match, to see how everybody adjusts the second time through, because I do think we're probably on that collision course. And so that's going to be super exciting if that happens. I think the football nerds among us can see how it will be different and probably a higher scoring game too.
Probably. Totally agree. That was a great game. So I think it would be a great national championship as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm super excited. We have a lot of football ahead of us. It's going to be a lot of fun and a great time. And thank you so much for being here today and dealing with my sick voice and talking with me about these three bowl games. But I want you to tell everybody where they can find you and kind of what it is you write about and talk about.
For sure. So when it comes to my Substack, it's at EdWithSports, at EdWithSports, the same as my X and Instagram handles. And basically there, I talk a little sports betting, but I also get into sports analytics as well, sort of those deeper dives and deeper, more complex concepts that maybe I can't do, say, in other platforms. And so it's a chance to really dig deeply as far as that's concerned, and also interview friends and talk to them about the
Yeah.
work that they're doing. So that's a lot of fun. And then I'm also with Pine Sports now. Started there last week, and so it's
Yay.
the first chance I have to get on a podcast and talk about it. So I
I
appreciate
know.
that.
Super exciting.
Yeah, it is. Wonderful group. They're fantastic, and we get to talk sports betting, every week, and talk about some of the key trends that we're seeing in football, and how the sport is changing specifically for 2025, and how we can capitalize off of that in a betting perspective. So, that's super cool. And then also I'm with FanDuel Sports Network West. We've got some clips coming up for the holiday stretch, and so we're really excited about that because there's no shortage of conversation when it comes to the Clippers and Kings and Angels, and especially from an analytic perspective, there is a lot to talk about. And so we've got some holiday clips and videos coming up, and I'm excited to share those.
That's awesome. Yes, I will be sure. I think I put your ad too, but your handle as well in the description so people can check you out.
Thank you.
Highly recommend you do so. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this morning for our bowl game preview. I really appreciate it. Be sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel to keep up with more Big Ten talk, which we have another show again tomorrow morning, as well as all the other awesome content our creators are putting out each and every week. Thanks, you guys.